Hello, and welcome to the Environmental Update. I'm your host, Brian Hoppy. As you can see, we are back in the LMTV studios for the first time in over a year. It feels great to be in the studio and to have things starting to get back to the way they were before the pandemic. In this episode, we'll hear from two new members of the Lower Merion Environmental Advisory Council and from another member of the EAC to discuss the carbon-free resolution recently adopted by the Board of Commissioners. First off, it's my pleasure to introduce the two newest Lower Merion EAC volunteers who've been asked to serve on behalf of the township. Mackie, Miguel, Paulson, and Dan Sutton. Welcome, Mackie and Dan.
Thank you.
So Mackie, why don't you take a few seconds and just introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. My name is Mackie Miguel Paulson, and I'm principal with Verde Architecture Consulting. And you pronounce Verde just like salsa verde, and it means green in Spanish. And what we do is sustainability consulting for architects, builders, and owners. I've been a sustainability consultant for 15 years, and our buildings that we help certify save water, save energy. They're built out of materials that are more sustainable, and they're also promote health of the occupants by increasing daylight and also indoor air quality.
That's excellent. Dan?
So I've been a resident of Lower Merion Township since 1979. And, I grew up in Canada, went to a military college, did 13 years in the Canadian military, and then PSFS for a few years, and then a 30-year career in Boeing. And there I learned a lot of project management, process management, and the critical skill of negotiating with high-level managers of cost versus value of where they were going to spend their money and serve their customers. In doing that, I learned a lot about project management and process control. And it's just awesome. It's just awesome. On the informal side, my kids went through the schools here. Mm-hmm. I was on the Lower Merion Soccer Club board. I coached with them for 22 years. I refereed youth soccer for 22 years. I was also on the board of Kaiserman JCC. And I just love being here.
That's excellent.
Philadelphia is a jewel.
And Lower Merion's not so bad, is it?
Not at all.
All right. So can I ask what motivated both of you to join the EAC? Dan, why don't you go first?
Well, so I thought that process management skill and value and cost could be a contribution. But really, I've been a member of the Pachamama Alliance for 15 years, and their mission is environmental sustainability, social justice, and spiritual fulfillment, human presence on the earth. And from being inside of that, and after 10 months of being retired, deciding that just being a wonderful loafer and having a good time didn't cut it. I needed to contribute. So I started with more of the seminars from Pachamama Alliance, like Introduction to Project Drawdown, got more involved with more people here, Climate Action of Lower Merion, Climate Action of Narberth and beyond. And it's amazing how much so many people know, and then how much little some people know. And it's really what we've got to do is we've got to keep educating our residents. And I just want to do that, and I want to be a contribution to Lower Merion and the earth being what I want it to be. And
I've been to one of your seminars, and they're tremendous. My daughter participated as well, and she took a lot out of that.
Yeah.
Thank you for hosting those.
You're welcome.
Mackie, how about you?
So I've always thought globally and acted locally, and this was an excellent opportunity. I think Lower Merion has so many good resources here. They're walkable communities. They have amazing native plantings and trees, and there's right now I think is the time for action, because there's a broad awareness and there's starting to be more political will to actually get things done. So I think this is the moment that I've waited decades for, so that I can actually make a contribution and things might actually start happening. So I'm very excited.
It is a great time, and you see a lot on the news about what's affecting the world, what's affecting the United States, and what's affecting us here locally. So what do you think are some of the most significant environmental challenges that the township currently faces? Mackie?
So greenhouse gas emissions is a huge one. I'm not going to speak on that because some other people are going to talk about very exciting news that the township is doing. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I think is not very well known is about the impact of our trash. So a lot of people know about recycling, and a lot of people know about reduce, reuse, and recycling. But a lot of people do not understand the importance of what happens to your trash after it leaves the big trash machine that picks up your trash. What happens in a lot of communities is the trash is taken and incinerated. After it's incinerated, the trash doesn't go away. All that particulate matter, some of it is caught by filters, but some of it is in the air. And there's been a lot of studies that show that incinerators are often next to communities of color. And those communities, according to many studies, have higher rates of cancer and death by cancer than other communities. So what you do with your trash is not only important for the environment, but it's important for social justice. And this is something I think that people don't realize. There's so much you can do to reduce your trash. And people think of it just as, oh well, so I have another thing that's not good for the environment, poor sea turtles. But it's more than poor sea turtles, it's poor people.
Understood, yes. And we had on a previous episode one of the Go for the Green, Lower Merion Go for the Green award winners, Mother Compost.
Yes.
And just having that ability to separate even another stream of waste from your house and have it produced into something that can be beneficial to the environment, it reduces that total load that you're sending to the landfill.
Yeah, I've composted for many years. We're a family of 3, and we have one little bitty trash can. I think it's the 20-gallon size.
How about you, Dan? What do you think?
Oh, so in this trash area, I just want to add that we are so fortunate that if you can't compost, put it into your disposal, because Lower Merion has a contract with Philadelphia, and all that sewage is treated by them, and it's one of the best ecological treatment plants there is in the U.S. Okay, it's all taken care of properly. So what I'm thinking about is residents and our carbon footprint. And it's like Narberth already knows that 40% of their carbon footprint is residential energy. Okay, so they're already focusing on that, at least CAN is. And we've got to do that too. We've got to get more people to stop using the fuel oils, stop using even natural gas. All right, we've got to start using solar. Our biggest block is our state government, and that's why we as individuals have to do more until we can turn around the state government and let the townships and the counties be free to do what they need to do. So solar panels on our homes, I just put in heat pumps. The savings on my air conditioning is awesome. So I want to share that with people. And then I want to start focusing on all of the large buildings, the school buildings, the township buildings, and I know Brian Hoppy's going to talk about that.
Brian Hoppy's going to talk about it. David Richman's going to talk about it a little bit.
David Richman's going to talk about it.
But I will be talking to David Richman.
You'll be talking to him.
But that brings up a good point, though. We're in the midst of a pretty robust sustainability planning process. The county is assisting, staff is assisting, and the EAC has organized a sustainable steering committee made up of a number of different residents, and I know that both of you have been a part of that. What do you think the average resident within Lower Merion could do to help improve the sustainability of the township or even of their own residents? Besides what we've talked about, reducing their trash and going green on their fuel use.
So it's interesting that you asked that because Dan mentioned Project Drawdown. Paul Hawken is a noted environmentalist, and he wrote a book, and he listed all the things that people could do that would have an impact on climate change. He listed solar panels, he listed electric vehicles, he listed all vegetarian diets. He had many, many things. And the number one thing that he found that had the most impact was refrigerant management. And I read that and I was like, what even is refrigerant management? Well, it turns out that refrigerants are fluids, and the fluids change easily from gas to liquid. And that's what makes them so good in your refrigerators, in your freezers, in your air conditioners, and in your car air conditioners. Well, it turns out that these fluids are very potent greenhouse gas. And what that means is that they can be 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 times as powerful as carbon dioxide. So that means it's equivalent to driving your car not just 1 mile, but 10,000 miles if you have one of these greenhouse gas emitting refrigerants in your air conditioner and it's leaking. And the problem with these particular refrigerants is that they're invisible, like all gases. So if your air conditioning is leaking, you don't know it unless it stops working. And because this is an issue that not many people know about, there's not a lot of government oversight. And because there's not a lot of government oversight, it's really easy to do the easy thing when you dispose of your air conditioner or refrigerator, which is just trash it. Mm-hmm. Now, unless that refrigerant is captured and treated carefully, it will escape into the atmosphere. And if you're the person who has to be in charge of dealing with this machine, you can either do it carefully or you can do it a free way, which is to just let it go into the atmosphere. This is why it's the most important thing throughout the world, because you're talking about the entire world, countries like Bolivia, countries like China. Everywhere, this is a problem that hasn't been addressed. So this is why Project Drawdown has identified this as the most important thing. And so what does this mean for the residents of Lower Merion? Well, it means that if your air conditioning is leaking, fix it now instead of later. And if you have to dispose of something, make sure you dispose of it in a place that's reputable and has their certifications and so on in place.
Well, thanks. And I do appreciate everything that you've offered today. And again, congratulations on your appointment to the EAC. I served for a very long time, and it is so rewarding, and I'm so happy for the both of you to be able to give back to the community.
Thank you so much.
It's time for us to take a short break. When we come back, we'll meet another EAC member, David Richman, and learn more about the recently adopted carbon-free resolution. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Environmental Update. I'm your host, Brian Hoppy. I'm joined by a longtime member of the EAC and chair of the Lower Merion Sustainability Steering Committee, David Richman. Welcome, David.
Brian, great to be with you.
It's great to be with you in person.
It's been much too long, and we miss you on the Environmental Advisory Council.
Well, I miss seeing you on a regular basis. This is so nice to be here in person and not via Zoom.
And I have to say, being in this very cool studio, cool in any number of words, that it's always a treat to be able to talk about climate action on a day which is the first of 3 extreme weather events that we're experiencing. This is June 28th, we're taping, and we have extreme temperatures and thunderstorms projected, and that's a backdrop for what we're going to talk about today.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. In May of 2019, the Board of Commissioners approved a resolution that directed the EAC to initiate a community-wide township sustainability planning process. Did that resolution articulate a goal or a vision for the planning process?
It did, and I should say, by the way, that the resolution was the outgrowth of a proposal that was made by the EAC while you were chairing it to the Board of Commissioners, and the resolution recognized that the environmental, social, and economic welfare of the township depends on the township managing its energy successfully, recognizing the threat posed by the warming of the climate, the need to convert from fossil fuels to renewable energy, to promote energy conservation, and to attend also, besides reducing the township's carbon footprint, to the management of our solid waste. So those were the visions and goals of the process, to make the township long-term a sustainable one where the decisions that we make as a township take into equal consideration the needs both of the existing residents and future residents. So that's the vision.
So that's pretty clear that the Board of Commissioners were aiming for something like that.
The Board of Commissioners had, I would say, a terrifically noble and practical vision at the same time. And so they asked the EAC to organize a planning process that would draw on the expertise, enthusiasm, and concern both of township management and staff and the wider public. And so the plan is designed to address both the private sector and the public sector. So it's one thing, and an important thing for the township as a steward of its own buildings, facilities, and vehicles, to operate them on a sustainable basis. It's a second and quite challenging thing as well to induce the public, residents, businesses, institutions, to have the same concerns and to aspire to the same goals.
And I understand the county was brought in to help facilitate that. Is the planning process still underway? I mean, are you still meeting and organizing around certain things?
The planning process is going full bore. In many ways, the most recent outgrowth of the planning process is also likely to be the most significant, and that is I'm authorized to announce that the township has hired a sustainability manager. That makes us one of the very few municipalities in Pennsylvania to have a sustainability manager, and the significance of that is that you have a professional in place, you have institutionalized the value and the function, and there will be professional leadership for this undertaking going forward. So I congratulate the township manager and the Board of Commissioners on taking that step.
That is great news.
And the Montgomery County Planning Commission, under contract to the township, has furnished us with the services of an environmental planner who has worked with other municipalities in Montgomery County in producing a plan. And indeed, there is a greenhouse gas emission reduction plan that's in near final form for submission to the Board of Commissioners. And let me say a word, if I could, about the Board of Commissioners before it gets away from me, and that is they have been terrifically committed to, first of all, defining and the goals and defining a pathway to achieving those goals, and to creating a collaborative process. I really have this notion of a public-private partnership. That is, the township staff Township Management, and the volunteers under the aegis of the Board of Commissioners, creating a plan that is capable of implementation. And I mentioned that the Board of Commissioners has a practical bent, and that's crucial to seeing to it that the ambitious plans that we formulate are in fact implemented.
You mentioned the greenhouse gas emission reduction plan that's out for internal review to be presented to the board soon. Has the planning process accomplished anything else for Lower Merion in terms of sustainability?
Since the planning process was launched, Brian, in May of 2019, the township has done a number of things which bear some relationship to the planning process. Could have occurred independently, but I'd like to think that the atmosphere, the momentum that the planning process generated, and the advocacy of the folks who were involved in the planning process helped to foster support for the two principal initiatives. One is that the township now purchases all of its electricity from renewable energy sources by way of acquiring what are called renewable energy credits. And the second major initiative was the conversion of the township's street lights and traffic signals to LED fixtures, which are significantly more efficient. That is to say, they consume much less energy. I have to say that was a long overdue measure, and this Board of Commissioners seized the opportunity and with again some grassroots advocacy saw the way clear to doing it, and that's been implemented. So those are two of the significant steps that have been taken. A third is, and this was the product of a resolution proposed by the EAC to the Board of Commissioners, and that was to publicly support the Commonwealth's rulemaking to have Pennsylvania join the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which is a carbon trading program, the ultimate intent of which is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions over the several northeastern Middle Atlantic states that currently participate. I think there are now 11 states, and Pennsylvania, if Governor Wolf has his way, and with the support of Lower Merion, will join RGGI, as it's known. So those are a couple of the things that have happened. There have also been two ordinances that have been drafted and submitted to the Board of Commissioners through the Environmental Initiatives Committee of the Board. And I haven't mentioned, by the way, the volunteer task forces that operate under the umbrella of the Sustainability Steering Committee. The Steering Committee, by the way, is made up of the members of the AEC plus representatives of industry, religious congregations, certainly township staff. We've tried to reach all of the segments of the community. Residents who are terrifically interested in making the township more sustainable are participating on the task forces. So we have subject matter task forces, and one of the subject matter task forces is the regulatory task force. Second one is the solid waste reduction and recycling task force. The latter generated a proposed ordinance that would, when adopted by the commissioners, would ban the distribution by retailers in the township of single-use carry-away plastic bags. So it's our plastic bag ordinance. Its adoption has been delayed by Pennsylvania law that preempts municipalities from enacting such laws, but that's going to expire, and I have every reason to believe that the Lower Merion will join the borough of Narberth, for example, in enacting a ban on plastic bags. The second ordinance more recently generated by the Regulatory Task Force. And that is known as a benchmarking ordinance that would call for the larger buildings in the township, non-residential buildings, to establish basically where they are in the way of energy and water consumption, establish a baseline against which they would measure their progress, hopefully their reduction in both energy and water consumption. And that information would be made public for the interest of tenants, prospective buyers of buildings, and simply to make buildings owners more conscious of that which they may be unmindful of. And the economic benefits of these ordinances are substantial, as well as the environmental benefits.
So one last question before we go. Can people still get involved in the sustainability planning process?
This process is going to go on for a long time. Sustainability planning has a long duration, and I welcome and need as many folks who are interested in joining up. So consider this an invitation.
David, thank you again for joining us today. It's tremendous to hear what the EAC, the township, and the Sustainability Steering Committee is doing, and all the great work that you're undertaking for the township.
Thanks, Brian.
Well, that does it for the summer edition of the Environmental Update. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's program. If you have any suggested topics for future episodes or have a question on an environmental issue, please email us at the address below. Thank you, and see you again in the fall.